I hope you're well where you are, and it's a gorgeous day in North Queensland, not too hot, and thankfully our wind has somewhat slowed down because the wind the last few days has been unpleasant to say the least, and my poor little birds in the shed have been getting blown all over the place, so that's not nice for them. So yesterday was Tuesday the 15th of September, and what was interesting about that, it's 20 years since the opening ceremony of the Sydney Olympics, and a lot of friends were posting photos of that time because I lived in Sydney then, and I was fortunate enough to both work on the Sydney Olympics and to be a performer in the opening ceremony. So it was not the digital age then, and we weren't all running around with smartphones taking photos of every single thing. So I have very few photos of that time of myself. But some friends obviously were able to post photos of them and their experiences, and I saw photos of myself that I've never seen before, all dressed up in my Sydney 2000 costume for the opening ceremony. And it really was one of the greatest nights of my life, and it was beautiful because I was in the nature section of the opening ceremony, and we trained for 3 months in secret, and for 3 occasions, 2 dress rehearsals, and on the night of the opening ceremony we got to run out in front of 100,000 people cheering for us. And on the night of the Olympics, obviously there was, you know, a TV audience of apparently 4 billion people watching, and that was phenomenal. And still I get goosebumps when I think about the experience and what happened that night. And I remember being in the same flower formation as my best friend, and her face beaming at me and my face beaming back at her, and looking up into the crowd and seeing, you know, 100,000 people staring down at you, smiling, excited and cheering. It was just a goosebump moment, and still to be remembered as one of the best nights of my life. So that was beautiful and such good memory, and it's a shame obviously we haven't had the Tokyo Olympics this year, but they will be next year, and hopefully we can relive some of those good memories. So I just thought I'd start with that as a great memory, because it's interesting when you recall memories that are happy and positive and exciting versus when you recall memories that are sad, hurtful or traumatic experiences, and physiologically your body responds. If you're remembering good experiences, your body produces happy hormones and good physiology. If you're reflecting or remembering traumatic moments or angry moments, your body will produce chemicals around flight or fight. So we can actually influence the physiology of our body around what we think and what we feel and what we're thinking about and what we're remembering. And that's very useful, because if you want to give your body a health boost, if you recall happy memories, then you'll actually improve your health and well-being. So that's a useful tip throughout your day. It's now week 5 of the Wheel of Wellbeing Challenge, which is fantastic. And what was very interesting for me about this week is to remind myself of some of the steps that I took in turning around my health and well-being, because it speaks a lot about slowing down, noticing our sense of place in the world, noticing our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and using mindfulness as a tool to embrace a slower pace of life. And there's a very useful video which is referred to by a gentleman named Carl Horner, and he's written a book called In Praise of Slow. And there's another lady in Australia called Dr. Libby, who's written a book called Rushing Women Syndrome. And why I talk about these 2 books is that we have, as a society and as humanity, fallen into a trap of thinking that we need to keep pace with life as opposed to living life at our own pace. And you know, often if you're on the field playing a sport, a coach will say to you, play your own game, you know, or when you're running your own race, you know, if you're doing a 400-meter sprint like Kathy Freeman, and I got to see her win her gold medal, she ran her own race. She knew what she was going to do for every second of that 400 meters. And if we can adopt that mindset in our own life, we can start to live life at a pace that's comfortable for us, knowing that we've got the energy to be strong until the end. And The only race we're trying to win is the race with ourselves at the end of the day. And that's really interesting because I had an aha moment on the weekend. Actually, it was on Sunday when I was doing my reset workshop in Charters Towers. So Charters Towers is a small, sleepy country town inland from Townsville, and I grew up there, and I went on to live in bigger cities. So I've lived Lismore, Townsville, Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane from time to time, and then London and Beijing, Johannesburg. So I've lived in huge cities. I've visited some of the largest cities in the world, Sao Paulo, Rio, New York, so on and so forth. And what was phenomenal aha moment for me on Sunday was the women that were in my reset workshop were as busy, as exhausted, as stressed, and as challenged in their day-to-day life as women that live in these other cities. And so I thought, actually, I moved from London to Townsville for a slower pace of life. I moved from London to Townsville to have simpler logistics and to have a better balance in work life. Now, could I have achieved that better balance? Could I have slowed down? Could I have re-engineered my life to live it at my pace in London? Maybe, maybe not. But now that I realize that it doesn't matter if you live in Charters Towers or you live in Townsville or you live in London, you can still allow your life to become busy and out of control. So you're spinning on your hamster wheel, and eventually you'll get spat out the other side. And that was really quite eye-opening for me, because one might think that, okay, if you live in a sleepy country town, what do you have to be stressed and busy and rushing around with all the time, versus if you live in a big city which is crazy and hectic and 24/7 go go go. The truth is, I realize now that it's not about where you live, it's about what you do and your mindset around what you do. Because in these books and in society and in cultural now, there's a large shift towards slowing down and taking more time and to not be rushing. And that's simply what Carl Honnor's book is about, which is about In Praise of Slow. And he talked about how his lifestyle was so busy, he would rush home in the evening to do his son's bedtime stories, and he'd want to do his son's bedtime stories as fast as possible so he could get it done so he could move on to the next thing. And even just saying that, I feel anxious. And I think we all live our lives that way, where we don't have time to stop and actually enjoy the moment of reading the story, enjoy the moment of spending time with our children, enjoy the moment of noticing birds, trees, bees, nature, etc. And that is a huge challenge for us as a society, as to how do we choose to slow down, because it is a choice. It's an active choice to choose to slow down versus choosing to keep on the hamster wheel and choosing to keep adding more things to our life that take our focus away from the important stuff, that keep us on that busy hamster treadmill. So that's very, very interesting, because I noticed for myself when I decided to come back to Australia, and then I realized my health was in, the toilet after years and years and years of being on a non-stop 24/7 hamster wheel and always thinking I've got to do more and rushing. I now realize in retrospect I was the only person with the power to make the changes that I needed to in order to slow the heck down, resist the urge to get busy, live life at a pace that's comfortable for me and my children at this stage of life that I'm at. And I found these graphics actually, which I use in my reset presentation. The first one here is about the busyness of bees, and this is entitled Switch the Heck Off. So of course it's all just busy work. That's what we do. We're bees. That's what we do. So like, this is the mindset of the vast proportion of the population where we're bees and we have to be busy all the time. And on this side of the slide it says slow down. Just slow down your speech, slow down your breathing, slow down your walking, slow down your eating, and let this slower, steadier pace perfume your mind and just slow down. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, well, how do I do that? So the main thing for me was to resist the urge to get busy. So when someone invited me to do something or asked me to be a part of something, initially I said no. So I spent the best part of 12 months saying no, because I knew that I needed to reset my health, I needed to reset my well-being, and I needed to reset my mindset. So the only way I could reset was to say no, to get off the hamster wheel and to decide at what pace I wanted to live my life. So once I spent that time, you know, kind of reassessing who I was, what I wanted to take on, and at the pace of life that I wanted to live for me and my children, I was able to choose the things that I invited back into my life and choose the things that I said yes to and that I wanted to be a part of. But you know, it takes courage to do that, and it takes courage to say no. It takes courage to get off the hamster wheel. It takes courage to say, actually, this is the right pace for me, and I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to stop all of the rushing around, because as mums and as working mums, we get into a trap of constantly rushing from one thing to another. And then we find ourselves burnt out and exhausted and weak, and our health suffers. So those are two interesting books: Rushing Women's Syndrome by Dr. Libby, Carl Honor, In Praise of Slow. Carl's got an interesting TEDx talk, which is part of the Wheel of Wellbeing Challenge. It's funny, insightful, and interesting, and I'm sure you'll get a lot out of that, and I'll paste the link at the after this live as well. So yeah, that's what I was really had my aha moment about on Sunday. Is it wouldn't matter if I lived in London, Sydney, Townsville, or Charters Towers. I would probably, if I hadn't changed my mindset and indeed my lifestyle to match the pace in which I want to live, I would be still in that constant, busy, stressed state of living, which is incredibly unhealthy. And when women come and say to me, I'm exhausted, I'm fed up, my health is suffering, and ultimately it's at that point, do you make a choice to keep on the hamster wheel, or do you make a choice to stop and reset and reclaim the aspects of life that you want to be living, and then go forward again? And that's essentially what I have done. And I talk about that in my book as well. And one of the aspects of this week, Wheel of Wellbeing, is using mindfulness as a tool to slow down and to notice and to be aware of your surroundings, as well as your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And step 3 of my book is called Mindfulness. Sorry, can you see? And what I do in that step is really to use practical hints, tips, and strategies with mindfulness to cope with everyday challenges in life, such as with our children, when we're rushing to work each day. How do we switch off our flight or fight in everyday situations, etc. So that has been tremendously important for me as well. And sometimes it's as simple as having visual cues to remind you. So on the visor of the car, I had a little note that I typed for myself, which was an affirmation. So if I was having a crazy hectic day and I got to the traffic lights, I could flip it down. May I be safe, may I be happy, may I live with ease. And that was a visual cue to remind myself that I wanted to be happy, I wanted to live with ease, I wanted to slow down. Excuse me, my nose is itchy, I'm not sure why. I bought myself this ring, it says breathe, and so when I'm holding the steering wheel and the kids are screaming at me in the back, I can remind myself to breathe. I had a little stone, I think I've just left it downstairs, but it's something that you can rub and it can say calm, grace, courage, you know, it's just a visual cue. And we were talking with a lady the other day who owns a cafe, and I said, well, maybe to put some visual cues on the walls, you know, there's the keep calm, carry on, there's the go slow, you know, just to find some beautiful posters or pictures or just visual cues that every time you look up and you find yourself in that rushing, stressed state of mind, you have an opportunity to remind yourself, actually, that is not a healthy way to live. And I'm going to kind of check in with myself at that moment. So using visual cues is really important until you become mindful enough of your own reactions that you can choose a response that is appropriate. So those are some useful hints and tips I wanted to share with you today. Stop, pause, and reset, and then find a pace that's right for you. You know, be objective about what you choose in your life, what you say yes to, what you allow your family to take on. Is it serving you? Is it within your best interest? And resist the urge to get busy. And those are some kind of mantras and things that I have found very, very helpful. So I'm going to read you now the poem from step 3 of my book. which is called Anticipation. Anticipation. Anticipation is an occupation that does not pay the rent. To anticipate is to speculate on what you might be sent. It's fun to hope and wonder, but try not to lament. A positive mind will help minimize all that energy spent. When you catch yourself caught up in the past, do not ruminate on what you did last. Take a moment to find your breath. Let go the emotion that catches in your chest. Your life is right here in the present. You don't have to worry what might be sent. There's calm to be found, so shift the doubts that bound. Create space in your head. Find stillness and presence instead. So that's my poem called Anticipation. It's on page 53 of the book. And in this step, the recap is to note down what you think about 98% of the time. Think about what drives your emotional reactions. Acknowledge the role emotions play in your life and ask them to take a holiday. Practice mindfulness relative to your life and to set a bedtime routine. And there's a great quote here from Joshua Becker, which I've included in my book. The first step in crafting the life that you want is to get rid of everything you don't. And that's really, really important. So I hope you enjoyed that poem. And then I just thought I would leave you with a few notes. So this Sunday in Townsville, I'm running a reset workshop in Cowan. There's still some spaces available. Tomorrow I have my first live television interview, which is exciting and frightening in equal measure, and I'm looking forward to that. It's with Ticker TV, which is a new online television channel, and they're going to interview me about health and well-being and my book, so I'm going to prepare for that. And just a little note on our koala book, we're almost getting to the stage of the internal layout. So we had our final feedback from the editor, which was lovely. Shortened some of the words a little bit. So we had great feedback about the story generally. I've sent the book off to the Koala Conservation Foundation for their input, as well as the fact sheet that will go at the back. And all of the illustrations are coming together very beautifully. So I'm so excited that hopefully by the mid of next week I'll be able to produce another copy which I can take on the road for my next roadshow to Cairns. So thanks for watching today. I hope you have a chance to look at step 5 of the Wheel of Wellbeing, which is all about place, your place in the world, slowing down, being more mindful. And thanks for supporting the book, and I'll share the television interview tomorrow when it's done. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.